G'day traders, welcome to wrap up of Wednesday the 1st of August, so start of a brand new month. Also we've got FOMC announcement day today, so if you're not aware of FOMC, it's the most influential news event on the trading calendar. So it definitely had an impact on today, and we'll break that down in a second. So on the daily charts here, you can see yesterday we're talking about potentially trying to hold this support line, and if that didn't hold, it's certainly not a strong area. I think the markets, and I'll bring up a 15-minute chart in a second, is trying to get a bit of some downward pressure. So the next spot that they could look to as far as an overall direction is this trend line and support area here around the 58 region. But again, I think daily charts are great just as a very overall direction, but then using something like 15-minute charts or some sort of intermediate chart that links up your very short-term charts with your daily charts is a lot better idea as far as getting the immediate pressure. And always got this on my screens and keeping me aware of the general pressure. Sometimes the daily charts can show where we're at, like at the moment we're on the upside, but we're certainly, you can see here on this 15-minute chart, we've got some downward movement. We've got a trend line forming on the downside here. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the continuation of this pre-market, if it holds it and comes down, and if we're putting pressure on this bit of a low point here, or even break it. This market's going to really head down. And like I said, that support line then on the daily charts is here at 58, and that's where it's very likely to head to in the short term. But you can see this is the day we looked at here, Wednesday. Leading up to it, there's a lot of pressure on the downside. We've broken through this support area, if you can imagine, at 76 there. See where the line is. Since we've broken down to that, it's certainly some momentum to the downside there. When they've popped up, they've really held sort of a market in here. Sort of this region here, it's popped up above it a little temporarily bit there, but you can see it's kind of popped up, held, just popped through it, popped up again, held and pushed down, and that's sort of the real area where the markets are driving down from, and certainly that's momentum on the downside at the moment, even though we're in a buyer's market. So that just gives a little bit more of an idea of the medium-term outlook of these markets. So 5-minute charts, again with that sort of that downward pressure in mind. However, I must admit, I'll bring back the 15-minute chart for a second. Ignoring this sort of bit at the moment, as we're opening up the buyer's market, so we don't have this influence of this downward section here. Even though we were pushing down, the market was coming back up and trying to put pressure and get above this area here. So for a while there, it was certainly in the balance and had reason that it could head up. It became quite obvious that it was wanting to push down once we got into the cash market, but leading to the open, was prepared to look at it both ways, I must admit. There's opportunity for the downside and the upside. A good gauge for, I think, the start of the day is if you kind of imagine a channel. So the pre-market's a bit of a channel. Once we either get a below or above that channel, and then you see the market hold and push off it, that gives you a real idea of the direction. So what happens is the market pushed down, came back. 1-minute chart shows a little bit better. It did try to hold the bottom of this channel here and push lower. If we really started to get some power off that, then certainly would have been on the downside. It's pushed down 7 ticks from that resistance area to the tick basically, and then it's put some pressure back on the upside and started pushing higher. But again, it was sort of it came up here and run into some resistance levels. It was really failing to push higher with any sort of momentum, and we got some real sort of rounded top here and a change, well, not a change of momentum, but certainly no power on the upside as they tried to come back down. Then we're running into a situation here where we're getting a 5-minute sell. Now at the time, this 5-minute sell had an opportunity to work. In the medium-term markets, yes, there's certainly pressure on the downside. However, again, there's a fairly significant support line here around this 75, 76 region. So in the short term, it was going to be very hard, and this is, in hindsight, this is exactly what's happened. It's bounced at that support and then pushed up a little bit higher again. We then got into a bit of a sideways channel leading up to lunch, so now people start to think about FOMC and how that's going to impact the market. So people are hesitant to put on their orders. In fact, when you look at the dome or the volume for the day, it was actually, the volume was constantly sitting about half of what it normally is. So that just shows that FOMC is quite an influential day, and I think the way you can interpret that is people just don't want to get into the market until they see what happens. They're knowing that this major announcement's coming, and they're all sort of sitting back and waiting. So sideways movement here led up to FOMC. You can see then this is where the madness began, 215 to exactly as when the announcement came up. You can see that's the major red candle there. From there, very choppy and very hard to interpret. When you're looking at candles that are well and truly bigger than your stop out. A lot of cases here, 3, 4, 5 times the size of your stop out. Well, then it makes trading very, very difficult, and certainly it's almost a time where you'd shut down your systems and say this is once we get this movement, I'm not going to take any sort of trade until the market settles right back down into a normal pattern, which I don't think you could really consider it to that for the rest of the afternoon. And this happens most FOMC days. The announcement comes out in the afternoon, and from there the market just goes a bit crazy, especially in these volatile times when you've got a lot of stuff happening over in the European countries. So any sort of little bit of an announcement, the whole world's looking at it and trying to interpret it, and from there having a major reaction to it. My opinion is it's almost an opportunity to have a bit of a rostered day off, or even a rostered afternoon off. You certainly don't want to. If you've got a systematic approach to the market, it's really going to be thrown out the window when we hit these sort of crazy times like this. So over the 1 minute chart. So here's it. It's pushing down. We had a chance of it heading back up here, so it come down here. It hovered around this sort of 70 region here. You can see there's a bit of support there. Then it come down. There's a bit of support again. It tried to get back up. It pushed back down. So this showed some real power on the downside, that maybe that they'd got rid of those buyers and they're looking to push down. This is where it pops up here to the bottom of that range. So sideways range here, 77. Hits it, pushes down, looks like pressure's building on the downside. All the other markets are down with it, so that's giving sort of confluency there on the downside. From there it turned around, so a bit of a change in pressure there. If it's all of a sudden created this bit of a pivot, turns around and just breaks up through it like that. So obviously the downside wasn't what the market had in mind at this particular moment. It's popped back up and used this resistance as an area to head on lower again. And again, this is where this 5 minute sell came up. So overall, longer term charts, definitely some possibility of working, but it was running into support levels where it bounced off. And then basically sideways movement leading into what you can see is a very erratic afternoon due to FOMC announcement. So not a major eventful day, a little bit there, but that's the wrap up for Wednesday. I'll speak to you guys Thursday.